Hiya. Check. Hello, good morning. It's the 6th of November, morning time in the UK. And welcome to another episode of My Compound Life, where we'll talk about, what would we be talking about? We'll be talking about Bitcoin this morning. Okay, so as of today, right now, Bitcoin is at a price of 103,000 US dollars. Not too bad from yesterday's recovery, I must say. Because I think on the 4th of November, Bitcoin actually dropped to sub $100,000, right? So it was briefly touching at around $98,000. So that was pretty bad. And I think during that time, when it dropped to sub $100,000, over 1 billion US dollars were liquidated, right? So that's why I always say, do not leverage, right? Do not do big gamble on your Bitcoin collateral. What we do here at My Compound Life is to compound your wealth, compound your Bitcoin over a period of time. You can definitely buy low, sell high for your Bitcoin, unless you're very, very good at looking at charts, looking at technical analysis. I wouldn't suggest anyone, taking your gamble and get into leverage trading, whether that would be leverage long or leverage short, right? Not the best time. Market is highly volatile right now. So I think what I'll be talking about now, it's essentially to follow up on a few things that I've spoke about, because I think some of us might also be thinking, would it be a good time to enter the market, right? Because obviously Bitcoin has reached sub 100,000. We might do. Okay, so whomever is new in the market and thinking, maybe it might be good to get in, I think anytime $100,000 Bitcoin or sub $100,000 Bitcoin will always be good, right? But bear in mind that in this current situation, right, that's the belief of 4 years cycle is coming to an end, the Bitcoin 4-year cycle. So anytime after this year's December, we might get into a Bitcoin or crypto bear market. The road is a bit bumpy. Let me go over here. Okay. So you may need to HODL or hold on to your Bitcoin for a longer period of time, right? But having said that, I think $100,000 worth of Bitcoin is still a very good entry price, right? Whoever have held their Bitcoin for a longer period of time, like myself, right? So I'm kind of in the process of exiting, right? So thank goodness, we did sell some at the peak of 126, and then it of course dropped to about 116, 110, and so forth, right? Because I don't do lump sum sell, right? So what I'm good at is always DCA, or pound cost average, where I kind of buy and sell on a daily basis, right? So whomever got into this asset at a much earlier stage, think about derisking and sell. So I think that's the kind of approach we should all consider. Derisking is very important because what we want to do now is to stack up some cash, right? So if you're thinking of enter, we may or may not go up further in terms of Bitcoin, right? So there's always the expectation that November, December will always be good for Bitcoin asset as well as equity. There will always be a rally. But based on current situation, I kind of felt whomever gotten earlier in the asset, it's time to de-risk as opposed to buy low and expecting a rally towards the end of year and try to sell it, right? But certainly, as I've mentioned earlier, don't go all out, right? Certainly keep a huge stack of Bitcoin, treat it like a bank, just cash out or take whatever you need to support your lifestyle, and keep the rest and let it compound, right? Because in my compound life, it's always about compounding asset and not really cash, right? However, we in this instance, right, where we kind of felt that Bitcoin already peaked, maybe it might make sense to take some cash out just so that we have some cash set aside to get back into the accumulation phase at a much later date, maybe next year. But it's not always doom and gloom right now in terms of Bitcoin. There are things definitely to look forward to. I think there are some saying in the market that currently Bitcoin is really lacking of liquidity, right? Money that flows around, right? So a lot of it is due to the shutdown of the US government. I think that also makes sense. But there will always be point of view that really, this lady, there will be point of view that really try to hype out Bitcoin. And this is where we need to be a little bit careful and protect our capital and not go all in on Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency at this phase, because there'll always be someone on X, on YouTube that says, hey, rotation's coming, liquidity will be flowing back. The US Fed will be carrying out quantitative easing, and they'll be leading into more liquidity that flows in. I think these are all great news, don't get me wrong, but we also need to be a bit sensible, right? So well done whomever took profit throughout the past couple of weeks. I think taking profit are extremely important. You'd never be able to be absolutely sure about the high or lows of Bitcoin, right? So it's not all doom and gloom. Another thing to maybe call out would be I think the huge liquidation when Bitcoin dropped to about sub 100,000. I think there was some negative news where they spoke about Wintermute was trying to sue Binance, okay? So which wasn't true, right? So that news wasn't true at all. And also, I think Okay, there's a little space here. Let me try to squeeze in. Okay, squeeze in. That Tesla is really close. Hopefully I'm not cutting too thin. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so there are definitely good news ahead. They might be further rate cut sometime in December. US are getting more, I think, more confirmation, right? I think Trump did a speech yesterday suggesting that, the importance of Bitcoin, crypto, digital assets, and so forth. So these are all positivity going on in the market that can, again, bring up Bitcoin's price. But have the expectation that in the event that if Bitcoin 4 years halving cycle finished, there will be so many sellers that believe in the 4 year cycle. They are kind of, in a way, exiting right now. So to that extent, expect kind of like a sell-off in the coming few weeks. And things will settle, right? Because there will always be new buyers coming in whenever Bitcoin drops to sub 100,000, right? So as long as you're not holding the asset and expecting to, 2x or 3x of your investment in the coming few weeks, that's fine, right? As long as you're not in leverage trading, you're fine too, right? If you're expecting to come in and buy and hold your asset for a longer period of time, I think it's a good time to get in, right? Because they could be the next wave of a price increase. That is if we still believe that Bitcoin correlate with the M2 liquidity, or correlates with the Fed's quantitative easing, like the money printing and so forth, right? So there's the expectation that money printing will be coming quite soon, maybe towards Q4 or Q1 or Q2 next year, right? So they could possibly be another peak. So that's why, personally, I'm not really selling all my Bitcoin, still retaining some in case it goes up further, right? So the same applies for Bitcoin, ETP, and so forth, right? I'm not sure whether any of you guys buy onto MicroStrategy or strategy stocks and shares and so forth, right? Because currently it's really, really underperforming, right? So it correlates with Bitcoin price too, right? So whenever Bitcoin price peak, the share goes up, and then of course strategy will sell more shares when Bitcoin price peak because their valuation of the company goes up, just so that they can sell off more shares to acquire more Bitcoin, right? So that kind of reminds me of, your share price performance will always be dependent on Bitcoin price. However, you have less control over it, right? Because obviously when Bitcoin rises, MicroStrategy or strategy will be selling off more of their shares to acquire more Bitcoin. As a result, the share price reduced too, right? So because of that, I kind of felt, to to get exposure to Bitcoin, it is still the best thing is to buy Bitcoin itself and not really strategy, or not even really Bitcoin ETP, right? So yeah, I think that's the best way of going at it. Okay, so time for me to go. I'll see you soon. Bye.